The house sparrow is a bird of the sparrow family Passeridae, found in most parts of the world. A small bird, it has a typical length of 16 centimeters and a mass of 24–39.5 grams. Females and young birds are colored pale brown and gray, and males have brighter black, white, and brown markings. One of about 25 species in the genus Passer, the house sparrow is native to most of Europe, the Mediterranean region, and much of Asia. Its intentional or accidental introductions to many regions, including parts of Australia, Africa, and the Americas, make it the most widely distributed wild bird. The house sparrow is strongly associated with human habitations, and can live in urban or rural settings. Though found in widely varied habitats and climates, it typically avoids extensive woodlands, grasslands, and deserts away from human development. It feeds mostly on the seeds of grains and weeds, but it is an opportunistic eater and commonly eats insects and many other foods. Its predators include domestic cats, hawks, owls, and many other predatory birds and mammals. Because of its numbers, ubiquity and association with human settlements, the house sparrow is culturally prominent. It is extensively, and usually unsuccessfully, persecuted as an agricultural pest. Though it is widespread and abundant, its numbers have declined in some areas. The animal's conservation status is listed as least concern on the IUCN Red List. Description: measurements and shape. The house sparrow is typically about 16 centimeters long, ranging from 14 to 18 centimeters. It is a compact bird with a full chest and a large rounded head. Its bill is stout and conical with a culmen length of 1.1–1.5 centimeters. Strongly built as an adaptation for eating seeds. Its tail is short, at 5.2–6.5 centimeters long. The wing chord is 6.7–8.9 centimeters, and the tarsus is 1.6–2.5 centimeters. In mass, the house sparrow ranges from 24 to 39.5 grams. Females usually are slightly smaller than males. The median mass on the European continent for both sexes is about 30 grams, and in more southerly subspecies is around 26 grams. Younger birds are smaller, males are larger during the winter, and females are larger during the breeding season. Birds at higher latitudes, colder climates, and sometimes higher altitudes are larger, both between and within subspecies. Plumage. The plumage of the house sparrow is mostly different shades of gray and brown. The sexes exhibit strong dimorphism. The female is mostly buffish above and below, while the male has boldly colored head markings, a reddish back, and gray underparts. The male has a dark gray crown from the top of its bill to its back, and chestnut brown flanking its crown on the sides of its head. It has black around its bill, on its throat, and on the spaces between its bill and eyes. It has a small white stripe between the lores and crown and small white spots immediately behind the eyes, with black patches below and above them. The underparts are pale gray or white, as are the cheeks, ear covers, and stripes at the base of the head. The upper back and mantle are a warm brown, with broad black streaks, while the lower back, rump and upper tail covers are grayish-brown. The male is duller in fresh non-breeding plumage, with whitish tips on many feathers. Wear and preening expose many of the bright brown and black markings, including most of the black throat and chest patch, called the bib or badge. The badge is variable in width and general size, and some scientists have suggested that patches signal social status or fitness. This hypothesis has led to a veritable cottage industry of studies, which have only conclusively shown that patches increase in size with age. The male's bill is black in the breeding season and horned during the rest of the year. The female has no black markings or gray crown. Its upperparts and head are brown with darker streaks around the mantle and a distinct pale supercilium. Its underparts are pale gray-brown. The female's bill is brownish-gray and becomes darker in breeding plumage approaching the black of the male's bill. Juveniles are similar to the adult female but deeper brown below and paler above, with paler and less defined supercilia. Juveniles have broader buff feather edges, and tend to have looser, scruffier plumage, like molting adults. Juvenile males tend to have darker throats and white postoculars like adult males, while juvenile females tend to have white throats. However, juveniles cannot be reliably sexed by plumage. Some juvenile males lack any markings of the adult male, and some juvenile females have male features. The bills of young birds are light yellow to straw, paler than the female's bill. Immature males have paler versions of the adult male's markings, which can be very indistinct in fresh plumage. By their first breeding season, young birds generally are indistinguishable from other adults, though they may still be paler during their first year. Voice: most house sparrow vocalizations are variations on its short and incessant chirping call, transcribed as chirrup, chilp, or fillip. This note is made as a contact call by flocking or resting birds, or by males to proclaim nest ownership and invite pairing. In the breeding season, the male gives this call repetitively, with emphasis and speed but not much rhythm, forming what is described either as a song or an ecstatic call, similar to a song. Young birds also give a true song, especially in captivity, a warbling similar to that of the European greenfinch. Aggressive males give a trilled version of their call, transcribed as ch-ch-ra-ra-tit-tit-tit. This call is also used by females in the breeding season, to establish dominance over males while displacing them to feed young or incubate eggs. House sparrows give a nasal alarm call, the basic sound of which is transcribed as quir, and a shrill creak call in great distress. Another vocalization is the appeasement call, a soft kwee given to inhibit aggression, usually given between birds of a mated pair. These vocalizations are not unique to the house sparrow, but are shared, with small variations, by all sparrows. There is some variation in the 12th subspecies of house sparrow, which are divided into two groups, the Oriental Indicus group, and the Palearctic Domesticus group. Birds of the Domesticus group have gray cheeks, while Indicus group birds have white cheeks as well as bright coloration on the crown, a smaller bill, and a longer black bib. The subspecies Pars domesticus tingitanus differs little from the nominate subspecies, except in the worn breeding plumage of the male, in which the head is speckled with black and underparts are paler. P.D. Balearoabericus is slightly paler than the nominate but darker than P.D. bibilicus. P.D. bibilicus is paler than most subspecies, but has the gray cheeks of Domesticus group birds. The similar P.D. persicus is paler and smaller, and P.D. niloticus is nearly identical but smaller. Of the less widespread Indicus group subspecies, D. hyrcanus is larger than P.D. indicus. D. huffufi is paler. D. bactrianus is larger and paler, and P.D. parkini is larger and darker with more black on the breast than any other subspecies. Identification: the house sparrow can be confused with a number of other seed-eating birds, especially its relatives in the genus Parsa. Many of these relatives are smaller, with an appearance that is neater or cuter, as with the Dead Sea sparrow. The Eurasian tree sparrow is smaller and more slender with a chestnut crown and a black patch on each cheek. The male Spanish sparrow and Italian sparrow are distinguished by their chestnut crowns. The Sind sparrow is very similar but smaller, with less black on the male's throat and a distinct pale supercilium on the female. Taxonomy and systematics. Names: the house sparrow was among the first animals to be given a scientific name in the modern system of biological classification, since it was described by Carl Linnaeus in the 1758 10th edition of Systema Naturae. It was described from a type specimen collected in Sweden, with the name Fringilla domestica. Later the genus name Fringilla came to be used only for the common chaffinch and its relatives. and the house sparrow has usually been placed in the genus Passer, created by French zoologist Mathurin-Jacques Brisson in 1760. The bird's scientific name and its usual English name have the same meaning. The Latin word passer, like the English word sparrow, is a term for small active birds, coming from a root word referring to speed. The Latin word domesticus means belonging to the house, like the common name, a reference to its association with humans. The house sparrow is also called by a number of alternative English names, including English sparrow, chiefly in North America, and Indian sparrow or Indian house sparrow, for the birds of the Indian subcontinent and Central Asia. Dialectal names include spar, spara, spadger, spadgic, and philip, mainly in southern England, spug and spuggy, mainly in northern England, spur and sprig, mainly in Scotland, and spatsy or spotsy, from the German spatz, in North America. Taxonomy: the genus Passer contains about 25 species, depending on the authority, 26 according to the Handbook of the Birds of the World. Most passer species are dull-colored birds with short square tails and stubby conical beaks, between 11 and 18 centimeters long. Mitochondrial DNA studies suggest that speciation in the genus occurred during the Pleistocene and earlier, while other evidence suggests speciation occurred 25,000 to 15,000 years ago. Within passer, the house sparrow is part of the Palearctic black-bibbed sparrows group and a close relative of the Mediterranean willow sparrows. The taxonomy of the house sparrow and its Mediterranean relatives is highly complicated. The common type of willow sparrow is the Spanish sparrow, which resembles the house sparrow in many respects. It frequently prefers wetter habitats than the house sparrow, and it is often colonial and nomadic. In most of the Mediterranean, one or both species occur, with some degree of hybridization. In North Africa, the two species hybridize extensively, forming highly variable mixed populations with a full range of characters from pure house sparrows to pure Spanish sparrows. In much of Italy there is a form apparently intermediate between the house and Spanish sparrows, known as the Italian sparrow. It resembles a hybrid between the two species, and is in other respects intermediate. Its specific status and origin are the subject of much debate. In the Alps, the Italian sparrow integrates over a roughly 20 km strip with the house sparrow, but to the south it integrates over the southern half of Italy and some Mediterranean islands with the Spanish sparrow. On the Mediterranean islands of Malta, Gozo, Crete, Rhodes, and Carpathos, there are other apparently intermediate birds of unknown status. Subspecies: a large number of subspecies have been named, of which 12 were recognized in the Handbook of the Birds of the World. These subspecies are divided into two groups, the Palearctic Domesticus group, and the Oriental Indicus group. Several Middle Eastern subspecies, including Passer domesticus biblicus, are sometimes considered a third, intermediate group. The subspecies P. D. indicus was described as a species, and was considered to be distinct by many ornithologists during the 19th century. Migratory birds of the subspecies P. D. bactrianus in the Indicus group were recorded overlapping with P. D. domesticus birds without hybridizing in the 1970s, so the Soviet scientists Edward I. Gavrilov and M.N. Korolov proposed the separation of the Indicus group as a separate species. However, Indicus group and Domesticus group birds integrate in a large part of Iran, so this split is rarely recognized. In North America, house sparrow populations are more differentiated than those in Europe. This variation follows predictable patterns, with birds at higher latitudes being larger and those in arid areas being paler. However, it is not clear how much this is caused by evolution or by environment. Similar observations have been made in New Zealand, and in South Africa. The introduced house sparrow populations may be distinct enough to merit subspecies status, especially in North America and Southern Africa, and American ornithologist Harry Church Oberholzer even gave the subspecies name Plecticus to the paler birds of western North America. Domesticus group P. D. domesticus, the nominate subspecies, is found in most of Europe, across northern Asia to Sakhalin and Kamchatka. It is the most widely introduced subspecies. P. D. Balearoibericus von Jordaens, 1923, described from Mallorca, is found in the Balearic Islands, southern France, the Balkans, and Anatolia. P. D. Tingitanus, described from Algeria, is found in the Maghreb from Ajdabia in Libya to Beni Abs in Algeria, and to Morocco's Atlantic coast. It hybridizes extensively with the Spanish sparrow, especially in the eastern part of its range. P. D. Niloticus Nickel-and-Bonhote, 1909, described from Ferium, Egypt, is found along the Nile north of Wadi Halfa, Sudan. It integrates with Basilicus in the Sinai, and with Rufioculus in a narrow zone around Wadi Halfa. It has been recorded in Somaliland. P. D. Persicus zarudni and Kudashev, 1916, described from the Karun River in Khuzestan, Iran, is found in the western and central Iran south of the Alborz Mountains, integrating with Indicus in eastern Iran and Afghanistan. P. D. Biblicus hartit, 1910, described from Palestine, is found in the Middle East from Cyprus and southeastern Turkey to the Sinai in the west and from Azerbaijan to Kuwait in the east. Indicus group P. D. Hyrcanus zarudni and Kudashev, 1916, described from Gorgan, Iran, is found along the southern coast of the Caspian Sea from Gorgan to southeastern Azerbaijan. It integrates with Persicus in the Alborz Mountains, and with Basilicus to the west. It is the subspecies with the smallest range. P. D. Bactrianus zarudni and Kudashev, 1916, described from Tashkent, is found in southern Kazakhstan to the Tian Shan and northern Iran and Afghanistan. It integrates with Persicus in Balochistan and with Indicus across central Afghanistan. Unlike most other house sparrow subspecies, it is almost entirely migratory, wintering in the plains of the northern Indian subcontinent. It is found in open country rather than in settlements, which are occupied by the Eurasian tree sparrow in its range. There is an exceptional record from Sudan. P. D. Parkini Whistler, 1920, described from Srinagar, Kashmir, is found in the western Himalayas from the Pamir Mountains to southeastern Nepal. It is migratory, like Bactrianus. P. D. Indicus Jardin Selby, 1831, described from Bangalore, is found in the Indian subcontinent south of the Himalayas, in Sri Lanka, western Southeast Asia, eastern Iran, southwestern Arabia and southern Israel. P. D. Hufufy Ticehurst and Cheeseman, 1924, described from Hofuf in Saudi Arabia, is found in northeastern Arabia. P. D. Rufioculus C. L. Brem, 1855, described from Khartoum, Sudan, is found in the Nile Valley from Wadi Halfa south to Renk in northern South Sudan, and in eastern Sudan, northern Ethiopia to the Red Sea coast in Eritrea. It has also been introduced to Mohe acute Li in the Comoros.